Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, around the world on the iHeart radio application. Well, the Clemson Tigers come up short, 71-69, losing last night at number one Duke. Perhaps the storyline coming out of that, however, as good as Clemson played, just one free throw in the contest. Tim Beret had to dig deep into the archives to find the last time that happened. We'll tell you when that was here in just a little bit. P.J. Hall played well, finished with his third double-double of the season. He scored 14 points with 10 rebounds. With the Tigers also got 13 points and 8 boards from Hunter Tyson, but ultimately it was not enough to overcome the home court advantage of playing in Durham and a lack of free throw opportunities. But I'll be honest, I didn't think it was all that poorly officiated. Quite frankly, I thought it was a well-officiated ball game. There were some missed calls, but I'm not sure if it was enough to make up for it, if you will. 803-450-0086. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line, be a part of the program. Tim Beret, he was trying to figure out when the last time Clemson attempted just a single free throw, and was diving way into the archives. And he initially thought that he would have to go back over 43 years. He saw against Louisiana Tech in 1980 and found attempts where Clemson had just one free throw attempt in the game. Or excuse me, 2 free throw attempts in the game, and then against Wake Forest in 94-95. However, he did find a 2015 game on February 8th where the Tigers were 0 for 1 against Miami. So last night's game was the second game in 43 years with just one attempt from the charity stripe. And while it is certainly an unusual statistic, in my estimation, not the reason Clemson lost that ball game. Clemson lost that ball game, in my opinion, simply because Duke is a better team and more skilled late in the game. They took advantage of their size and strength on the interior, and you get beat sometimes by good teams, especially on the road in their venue. I thought Clemson played well. I can't complain. There have been plenty of things to complain about with this Tiger basketball team. Last night was not one of them. Coach Brad Brownell, following the game, had these comments.
Great basketball game. Incredibly proud of my players and team for the way we competed and just stuck to what we were trying to do tonight. Thought we played very well on both ends, and give Duke's kids credit. They made the plays that they needed to make at the end of games. Big baskets down the stretch. We had a couple opportunities that in the second half where I thought we got some good balls inside and didn't quite finish. But you look at the stat sheet, we did everything we can do in terms of 19 assists, made 10 threes or 12 threes, or whatever it is. Took care of the ball and guarded them about as well as we can guard them. Just wasn't quite good enough. So, again, great game. Our team's getting better, and again, really just proud of our guys for their fight tonight. Questions?
Brad Brownell was also asked about the fact that they only had 4 team fouls going into the last possession for Duke, so there really wasn't an opportunity to put the Blue Devils on the line.
Well, there's only 38 seconds. We didn't think there was a lot of time. If we tried to foul 3 times, that wasn't going to work. We didn't have enough time to really do a lot. I didn't think that would be good. We just, we were going to guard them, see what happened. If we got a miss, we thought we could come down with a chance to tie or win the game. And, I got to see the play on tape. He got it in a pretty good spot and kind of powered through us and made it wasn't an easy shot, but, we didn't quite get there with enough help. But, we discussed whether we're going to foul 3 times and, make them go to the line and shoot a free throw. But I just didn't want to give them points. The ball was going to be in good free throw shooters' hands. So try to guard them and get it done.
Brad Brownell was also asked about Clemson's defense and just how they played during the contest.
I just think we swarmed to the ball. Our guys played incredibly hard. I thought we guarded the ball reasonably well. Probably not as well in the second half. But I thought when they got it into positions, our guys really tried to swarm and just, make them uncomfortable as much as we can. They're big, strong, physical players. They knock us around a little bit. And so we try to get some hands in there to get some deflections, have active hands. I know we had 6 steals, I think, in the first half. I don't know what it all ended up. We ended up with 9. But just that.
Brownell was also asked about the looks Clemson got late in the game and whether or not he was satisfied with the way those played out.
I wish David would have tried to score. Like we were trying to get the ball to David down low and thought maybe he, get Mark Williams a little bit away from the basket. And I would like to have seen, I need to see that David have an opportunity to try to play through. He's a guy that scored in there. If you follow us, he scored some baskets in there for us. And obviously then PJ ended up with a shot. It's okay. But we had some other possessions, I can't remember off the top of my head, that, weren't quite as good as I would have liked. But some of that's Duke's defense. And they're big, strong, physical guys. PJ didn't finish as well tonight against Mark Williams as we probably needed it to win the game.
So again, the Tigers come up just a little bit short on the road in Durham against the Duke Blue Devils. A disappointing loss for sure. But I thought a couple of things that have developed here over the past couple of weeks, in my opinion, Hunter Tyson and what he was able to do in this game alongside PJ Hall is helping give Clemson a little more formidable interior combo. And Tyson is a guy that can step out too. And as you saw as well, PJ Hall at nearly 7 feet tall, also very capable of stepping out and shooting from deep. But then the storyline of Chase Hunter and his ability to be a impactful player for Clemson and giving them a little bit of size on the perimeter at guard. For everything that I feel like we've said here on the show this year about the undersized guard play for the Tigers, Chase Hunter is truly adding a level of athleticism and height on the perimeter, both offensively and defensively. And watching him, he goes 5 of 10 in the ball game, scores 12 points with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. I think about how come he's been so absent for a portion of the year. And, I think what Brad Brownell has learned is that the lineup is a lot better with Dawes, Hunter, Tyson, Collins, and Hall, or honor Hunter, Tyson, Collins, and Hall, because not only are you getting some of your best players on the court, but you are mitigating the height disadvantage that exists for Clemson and giving the Tigers a much better opportunity to compete against everybody they play. Clemson in the contest shot 71 field goal attempts, nearly 20 more shots than the Duke Blue Devils, but only hit 4 more buckets than the Blue Devils. Clemson was 29 of 71, 42%. The Blue Devils were 25 of 52 for just shy of 50%. Excuse me, just shy of 50% at 48%. Clemson was at 41%. And then from deep, Clemson shot 11 of 26, and the Blue Devils were 10 of 20, so 50% from downtown for the Blue Devils. Clemson 0 of 1 from the free throw line. Duke 11 of 13, and not to beat a dead horse here, but if Clemson had hit one free throw, it's a 1-point game. And again, I'm not saying you got to be perfect from the line, but for crying out loud, when you only get one, you might as well knock it down. I mean, that is just an unbelievable stat still. Duke was 11 of 13 from the free throw line. 803-450-0086. Again, I don't think you got to be overly disappointed, folks. I really don't. I think it's okay to embrace a quality loss, and I'm using some air quotes there. I don't love the phrase, but this Clemson basketball team looked a lot better against Duke than they have in recent weeks. And if you get that type of effort, I think you can honestly believe or buy into a positive stretch here at the back end of the season. I mean, the thing about Clemson at this point is there have been some games along the way where they haven't, for lack of a better term, shown up. It didn't feel like they showed up or closed games in certain situations that you need to be able to go out and do. With a matchup coming up against Florida State on February 2nd, followed by a road trip to Georgia Tech, and then North Carolina on the 8th in Tiger Town. If you can get the type of effort that you got against Duke, you're going to have a legitimate chance in those ball games. I don't think there's any question about that. You will have a legitimate chance in those ball games if you get the effort that you got against Duke. And I think that's all you can ask for at this point. I mean, given the fact that this is a team that's had some leads and blown some games, they had every reason perhaps to not show up at Duke, to not fight, to not have that Clemson grit. And it's amazing because if you listen to this show, you think, man, Swanee, you're up and down on this Tiger basketball team. But really, what I think I'm up and down on is just effort and energy. And I think when they give it, they can compete with most teams. But when you feel like they're, not quite on their game, they're not going to do it. And again, I think Chase Hunter is a big catalyst of the recent success. The unfortunate trends of that game that took place, though, Duke hit 5 out of their last 6 field goals. In the second half, Clemson let Duke get out to a little bit of a lead. I think it ended up being like a 6-point lead at one point along the way. And when you've played well, 36-36 at the break, Brad Brownell was asked, what it would take to win the game. And he essentially said, look, we got our hands full. And you knew Duke was going to come out and deliver as big a blow as they could early. And they hit Clemson, but the Tigers didn't fall over. I mean, they stood up. It's unfortunate that they, were punched in the gut and gave up that lead or allowed Duke to take the lead just after the half. I think the largest margin after the half got up to 6, maybe. Let me pull the old double check on it. Yeah, 6-point lead by the Blue. Actually, they took a 7-point lead with 13 minutes and 48 seconds and 9 minutes and 25 seconds. And then Clemson answered back with a Hunter Tyson 3-pointer. And then Chase Hunter got a quick dunk. Nick Honor hit a 3-pointer, I believe, and Clemson trimmed that lead. And as a matter of fact, took a lead after a little 8-0 run. So I tipped the cap. An 8-0 run with 6:11 left in the game. Clemson takes a 61-60 lead. They would battle back and tie it at 65 with 3:05 left. Duke, unfortunately, would score the next 6 points to take a 69-65 lead after trailing actually 65-63. Clemson narrowed that gap to 69-67 on a Hunter Tyson dunk off the fast break, a little leak out, if you will. Duke got a bucket by Pablo Banchero to take a 4-point lead. Then Clemson got a layup by David Collins with 2 seconds left. And again, just with 4 fouls at the end of the game, there was not a lot Clemson could do once the Blue Devils inbounded the ball. That put the icing on the cake, but they fought. And it is really difficult to be overly disappointed in the effort you got. Quite frankly, I know he didn't play much, but I enjoyed watching Middlebrooks. Ben Middlebrooks got in a little bit. I think he played 5, maybe 6 minutes in the game, somewhere in there. I didn't mind the minutes he gave you. They weren't spectacular minutes on the offensive end per se, but he was a big body that could allow PJ Hall a few minutes to rest. And ultimately, that's sometimes what a big guy needs. You don't have to come in there and be Shaquille O'Neal. Just come in there and be Bill Winningham or Bill Winnington. And take up space, box out, block shots, get some rebounds. Just do whatever you can to spell the big man. And that's exactly what happened. But I do think this group is better with Chase Hunter starting and getting more playing time than the other 2 guards, Nick Honor and Alamir Dawes. I know it wasn't by much, but I think that has to be the case. I think Hunter, Tyson, Collins, and Hall give you a decent lineup. It's not Fab Five, it's not national championship, but I think that is a talented enough group that if they're on the hardwood, I think that they can create some mismatches, especially given Brad Brownell's offensive schemes. You saw some backdoor cuts, you saw some motion in that offense, the way Clemson runs it, that can present some opportunities for those guys. And a part of the reason I believe the opportunity is presented more so with Chase Hunter in is because, to me, yeah, it's great that guys can shoot the 3. It's great that guys can shoot the 3. But if you're going to win against teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference, yes, you got to be able to shoot, but you've also got to create matchups of importance and significance that teams don't feel like they can cheat off of, or that guys have to be accountable for boxing out. Think about this. I mentioned Chase Hunter pulling 7 rebounds. Hunter Tyson got 8. David Collins got 9. PJ Hall got 10. Those 4 guys combined for 34 of Clemson's 39 rebounds. That's the reason you got to continue to play those guys. You know how many rebounds Alamir Dawes had? Zip 0, stingy with De Niro. Nick Honor, singular, 1. Those other 4 guys combined for 34 rebounds. That's why you got to adjust the lineup and play those guys. That's why a guy like Chase Hunter's got to be in the game. Physically, in this league, you got to be able to rebound the basketball. And Alamir Dawes and Nick Honor are simply too small to both be on the court at the same time and expect your team to compete on the boards. You're going to get beat more often than not. Sure, you might knock down some threes, but without those 2 guys on the court at the same time, you earn yourself a lot of possessions, and that's key. 803-450-0086, rolling along on a Wednesday afternoon. Had to think what day it was. It is the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Don't forget, coming up in hour number 2, John Blau will be a part of the show. Back at it on a Wednesday, the show that shakes the Southland. So earlier we played you a little bit of Brad Brownell's post-game audio. Well, here is what Coach Brownell had to say about Clemson's lack of opportunities at the free throw line.
Yes. That's happened here before, too.
That's happened here before, too. So a little bit of, a little bit of an issue there, certainly for Brad Brownell, from his perspective about the game and the way it's called. And look, I said earlier, and I meant it, I do not believe that game came down to poor officiating. I honestly do not. If I did, I would say, yep, I believe that was bad officiating. I didn't. I thought the game was well officiated. What I think happens, though, in the mind's eye of the coaches and the fans watching, and probably even the players playing, is that if you have spent any amount of time in your life watching, playing, enjoying basketball in any way, shape, or form, then you recognize the fact that the odds that a team does not commit a shooting foul at some point along the way is typically slim to none. Most of the time, a team is going to commit a shooting foul at some point. Now, you have to help them out a little bit. I mean, you have to be willing to drive and attack the basket, because there just aren't a ton of fouls that are created on the perimeter. Like, you have to generate those fouls. And looking back at the game, and I have not gone back and rewatched the whole ball game, but there weren't like moments in this game where I found myself going, oh, that was an egregious missed call. And I think that's the thing that we all sort of expect you would see in a game where you only got one free throw, is the egregious nature of missed calls. And since we didn't really have that, when it was all said and done, and people started harping on the fact that Clemson had only shot one free throw, I wasn't overly fazed. I've been at games where I thought Clemson got the hose job from the officials. And you could certainly look at the fact that Duke shot 13 free throws and infer that maybe they had some advantageous free throw opportunities that Clemson did not. And that's tough to deny that may very well be the case. But I didn't feel like it was Clemson's lack of opportunities that cost them the game. And that's why when I see people, and look, you're a fan, that's short for fanatic, you're allowed to be over the top with your take. You're allowed to be frustrated and say, oh, man, this always happens to us when we play at Duke. I mean, you're allowed to think that there was some home cooking. And that's fine, but I did not feel like there were many moments in that game where, oh, man, the Tigers should have been shooting free throws. Now, that may or may not, in your mind, should be credited to Duke defensively. I don't really care how you feel about it, quite frankly. But I didn't walk away from that game saying, holy cow, can you believe they didn't call that one? And that, to me, would be the thing. That's when I would really be frustrated. If Clemson had gotten beat by 2, and I, looking at that game down the stretch, thought, man, we got bamboozled on that call. How did we not get a call there? Duke always gets that call. As a matter of fact, there was a block charge call. And again, I'm so thankful that we've got the ring, or what do you call it, the little line on the court that tells you where a player can and can't take a charge, because I have no doubt that in the 90s and early 2000s, when that line didn't exist, the block charge line or whatever it's called, when it didn't exist, I'm fairly confident that at some point along the way, during that time, we probably have a charge call on Clemson that 98% of us would say is no way a charge call. Like that, the kid, in my estimation, even if the line didn't exist, it should not have been a charge. Fortunately, because the line exists, it couldn't be called a charge, and Clemson didn't get bamboozled by the officials in that regard, which is one of the things that I think anybody who's watched Tiger basketball through the years knows is if Duke or North Carolina takes a charge on Clemson, it's normally a charge on Clemson. But now with that line, you got to call it the right way because the line tells the story. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Again, Clemson Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon. I mentioned it earlier, but John Blau is going to be a part of the program. We'll get his thoughts on this Clemson-Duke matchup. 71-69, the final score. I also like the fact that you got P.J. Hall, knocking down a couple of three-pointers. I don't love the fact that he shot 7. When your 7-footer's the leading three-point shooter, that's typically not in the list of things that you want to do. But it was what the Tigers did do. But I am grateful that Clemson's got a big guy that can shoot like that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if he knocks down one more of those, if he's 3 of 7 instead of 2 of 7, we're talking about a Clemson dub. So I get the math. I get that. I don't need the protractor to figure that one out, folks. But all in all, I mean, if I prefer my big man to shoot 4. I mean, if it's just what he's got to do because the shot clock's winding down, that's one thing. It's quite another for that to have to be his go-to shot. And at times in that game, I thought he was too comfortable from beyond the arc. 803-450-0086. Hit a quick break. We'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland as we roll along here on a Wednesday afternoon. Stay with us. The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk on a Wednesday. Interesting topic I saw. I think it was The Athletic that put this out yesterday or late last night, one way or the other. And the topic of conversation on this article was, what school, if you were a high school quarterback, would you most want to attend? And honestly, I mean, it got me thinking for a number of reasons. One, because over the past decade, I'm not sure there has been a team in college football with a better track record at quarterback than your Clemson Tigers. And I know that there's a lot left to be desired, if that's the right way you say it, about DJ Uiagalelei, but Cade Klubnik now arriving at Clemson. The expectation that he's gotten, look, new guys arrive. They don't just get anointed. They gotta go out there and earn it. But with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and 2 national titles and the huge numbers they put up, even maybe going back as far as Taj Boyd, if you want. I mean, Clemson has had their fair share of really good quarterbacks. But, I think when you talk about where would you want to go if you are a quarterback in high school to play in a system that has, great numbers and all of that and Heisman trophies, I mean, you were probably looking at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley until he left, which, of course, then creates the question about, is Southern Cal now on that list? And I think it's an absolute yes on that front. But Clemson's got to be there. I think Southern Cal now way more than Oklahoma has to be there. And I think that's part of the reason that you see Caleb Williams, quarterback at Oklahoma, putting his name into the transfer portal just to take a peek to see if there is an opportunity out there for him that would exist in a better situation like Southern Cal under Lincoln Riley. I also wonder about Alabama and how quickly Nick Saban has been willing to adjust his system in order to better serve the more modern game. I think that there's no doubt that there was a time where if you were a star quarterback, you probably you thought about going to Alabama, but you knew it was going to be about the running game and it wasn't going to be spreading the ball around. It was going to be more of an old school style, style offense, pro style, if you will. And to Nick Saban's credit, he changed it up and he opened it up. And for everybody who for years thought, well, Nick Saban and Alabama are just going to have these game managers with the ball in their hand, I think you had to be awakened to the fact that, no, that's changing. And you just saw it this year with the Alabama Crimson Tide for the first time ever. Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback out of T-Town, out of Tuscaloosa. So when you get the Heisman Trophy, and look, Clemson, as much as I think you're above Alabama from that standpoint for quarterbacks, when you get one for your quarterback, that is a big step. And when you look at what Oklahoma had under Lincoln Riley during his tenure there, it is the reason that players still demand, especially quarterbacks, demand to play for a guy like that. And so Ari Weiserman from The Athletic wrote an article called, "If you were a five-star quarterback, where would you go? What's more important, the portal or high school prospects or recruiting mailbag?" And that is one of the arguments that Dabo Swinney has made for a while now about the portal. One of the reasons he thinks it would be bad. And that is, of course, that he believes that teams will stop recruiting high school kids and start looking to the portal to fill needs because you get players who have a little bit more experience. But in this mailbag question about that, I think the thing that I sort of look to is the fact that there are teams out there like Michigan State, maybe even Michigan, that are built behind maybe a power running game to a degree, less than spreading the ball around. Ohio State, I think, throws their name into the mix for sure. Ryan Day is one of the great offensive minds in the sport today. And I think South Carolina fans, you can equate, or relate to this. The fact that now you've got a quarterback in Spencer Rattler who is also one of the top prospects. And I don't think South Carolina is going to become the landing spot of top quarterback prospects in the country. But what I do believe is that if the South Carolina Gamecocks have a good season with Spencer Rattler at quarterback and your offense can produce at a high level, especially at the quarterback spot, I think you begin to throw your name into the hat as well for that type of, for that type of recognition. Because if you are a new tenured coach like Shane Beamer and you can show progression and success, and then ultimately follow that up with another year with a high-powered quarterback playing well, you will get on radars in a hurry. Because you don't have baggage. You don't have down years. And so I think it's It's Lincoln Riley, Ohio State, Clemson, and just a handful of other schools where the top tier quarterbacks, Alabama, would really want to go. We'll hit a quick break. We'll put a bow on hour one next. Final segment of hour number one here on the show that shakes the Southland. I don't think I gave out the text line there in that last segment. I want to hear from you. If you were a five-star quarterback, where would you go? Where would you go? Again, I think it's Southern Cal because of Lincoln Riley. I think it's Alabama because of what you've seen Nick Saban transform his program into. I think it's certainly Clemson because of what you've seen from Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Taj Boyd, the potential for DJ, Cade Klubnik. So if you're out there and you are Arch Manning, for example, it's got to be beneficial to Clemson that they've done so well recently with top flight quarterbacks. It's got to be beneficial for Southern Cal and Lincoln Riley because of the job he's done. I wonder if LSU is more in the mix with Brian Kelly and the fact that Arch Manning is an in-state kid. I wonder if, say, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, you think about Arch Manning's uncle's heritage of playing and his grandfather's heritage of playing at Ole Miss. I mean, that Manning name with Eli and Archie certainly rings true. But is the Ohio State, Clemson, Southern Cal, and maybe even, it's Oklahoma, do they get any benefit of the doubt simply because of what they've done through the years? I honestly can't tell you. I don't know how Oklahoma is affected one way or the other. But I will say that I do believe that teams like Clemson and others who have shown a propensity of success at the collegiate level recently with the quarterbacks has a great chance to land said athletes to come play at their schools. I mean, I just think that is a tremendous advantage for the programs that have proven it. And five-star quarterbacks, I would guess, are acquired by the top, say, the top 10 programs in the country on a consistent basis. I would venture to guess acquire all of the five-star quarterbacks. I mean, I don't have every recruiting ranking in front of me in recent memory, but it's difficult to imagine that a five-star kid goes outside of the top 10 schools. And those top 10 schools have gotten there because of success. And that success, of course, leads to more kids wanting to come in and be a part of your system because it is proven. It has been proven on the gridiron. Let me know. What do you think? What about Georgia? There's an interesting bird. What about the Georgia Bulldogs for a second if you're a five-star quarterback? Stetson Bennett got the JOBDONE, the job done, won the national title. I mean, sure, you had Jake Fromm, but you had Fields transfer out, Justin Fields transfer out of the program. You had the Newman kid come in from Wake Forest and didn't play because of the COVID year. He sat it out. You had JT Daniels come in, never really became the star people had hoped. He's a former five-star kid. It's also an offense very much built around the run, the defensive, style ball game. They want to keep, for the most part, I think that Georgia would be satisfied with running the ball down your throat and just playing solid defense. If you're a quarterback and you've watched the Georgia Bulldogs, are you going, that's the place for me at this point? Or are you looking at it and thinking, not sure. I'm not sure that this is where I really want to be, because I don't think that I'm going to get the opportunities to do the things that I think I have to do in order to get into the NFL. I mean, look, I don't think there's a perfect answer by any means, but I do believe that there are teams out there that the perception of their program, and maybe another factor would be, do you want to play in Pennsylvania State College? Do you want to play in Ann Arbor at Michigan? Do you want to play in Minnesota with the Golden Gophers? If you're a 5-star quarterback, probably not. I mean, half the college football season there's got some level of snow and most likely inclement weather, which doesn't exactly bolster the old QBR. So I would think that geographically there would be an advantage for Florida, Florida State, Miami, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, you start to go through all the teams in the Southeast, and I'm not going to lie, I think there is a geographical advantage to being those teams when it comes down to recruiting quarterbacks. I mean, unless your dad just played at Michigan and you've dreamed of being a Michigan player your whole life, I find it hard to imagine that you got kids sitting down in sunny, funny Destin Beach, Florida, or Destin, going, yeah, you know what? I think I want to go play quarterback at Indiana. I mean, even Ohio State it's amazing that Columbus isn't far enough north to detract top flight quarterbacks from wanting to go play. Because I can't imagine anything much tougher, to be honest with you. There's not much out there tougher, in my opinion, than having to go out on the gridiron and play quarterback in the snow. I was reading Kirk Herbstreit's book this past summer, and he was talking about that. And you're just getting out there and how much he loved that aspect of the game. And when I'm watching it on TV and it's snowing, I'm like, man, that would be cool, wouldn't it? But I got a feeling if I was playing in it, I would have a different feeling completely. Hour 2 coming up. John Blau joins us. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you again on a Wednesday afternoon. The Clemson Tiger men's basketball team comes up just short up in Durham against the Duke Blue Devils. 71-69, the final score. The game was tied at the half. I don't like to applaud losses or effort, but it's hard to be angry with the team and the way they played. It's hard to be disappointed even with Brad Brownell, because when you see flashes like that, you think what could be for your Clemson Tigers. Well, John Blau's got you covered for the Charleston Post and Courier, and he's with us here for about 20 minutes today to talk about everything going on in Tiger Town. But first, John, your initial takeaways from last night's game up in Durham.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't like to say the term moral victories, but I feel like that's about as close as you can get if you're Clemson. You know, that they're coming out of a stretch where they lost 4 out of 5 games. They had that Pittsburgh win, but Pittsburgh's at the bottom of the ACC. You're wondering how they'll respond going to Duke, especially with Hunter Tyson and PJ Hall not at full strength. I mean, Hunter Tyson's been dealing with an ankle thing, or PJ Hall's been dealing with a foot problem. They take it to Duke, and you know they have a chance to win the game. And Mike Krzyzewski said it after the game that they're one play away from winning. And defensively, he was very impressed by them. And then just a myriad of guys, having great performances. Obviously, PJ Hall not great from the field, 6 of 21. But Chase Hunter is a guy who's been playing really well lately. Has 12 points, 7 boards, I think 5 assists. Nick Honor hits a couple big shots. David Collins is taking it to the rim. So a lot of good things if you're a Clemson fan. Obviously, you look at the free throw numbers and the fact that they got Duke shot 11 of 13 and Clemson was 0 of 1. Obviously, that's going to rankle a lot of people because you look at a 2-point margin of victory. They got spotted 11 points right there. So definitely one where I could see people being a little frustrated that they didn't come out with it. At the same time, considering where Clemson was to put up that performance is definitely encouraging, I would say.
Yeah, John Blau from the Post and Courier. Follow him on Twitter at John_Blau. So with that, I'm with you. And I thought, again, I'm not a moral victory guy either, but when Clemson, first off, they get it tied at the break, 36 apiece, and then they end up falling down 7 points in that game in the second half, but they come back 3 consecutive possessions with a couple of threes, and I think it was a dunk that gave them an 8-point stretch where they took a 1-point lead with just over 6 minutes left in the game. And I'm not kidding you. Like at that point, John, you start to feel like this team came to play. And I think sometimes when Clemson basketball loses, and I've been covering this team for a long, long time, I think when they lose, sometimes they look like they didn't come to play. And that's where I think the frustration sets in for fans. It's when the effort, the energy, and the intensity don't correlate to what you see on the court. And whether it's perceived or whether it's actual, I think that's the biggest problem that Brad Brownell has gotten. Games like last night, I think people would deal with. It's the other matchups that we've seen this year where Clemson squandered big leads and just maybe look lifeless at times that really bugs the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Syracuse again. That's why this is such a great performance for them. You go back, a week or two, Syracuse, you give up 91 points on the road. You don't play any defense. Brad Brownell saying, I'm concerned about the toughness of our team. I'm concerned about we're kind of weak compared to the way we were last year. And those are things you don't feel like necessarily you can fix in the middle of the season. But, at the end of the day, they do what they did at Duke. You kind of find out that they can, find that other gear. But yeah, no, I totally get it. The frustrations when they're giving up 91 points, when they're giving up giant leads, they've done multiple times. Some of that's growing pains. Again, you don't have Amir Sims. I mean, that is it is impossible to understate how much he meant to that program. Again, when the defense conversation was coming up at Syracuse, Brad Brownell brought up Amir Sims, how much we miss him. And, this is a guy who led you points, rebounds, and assists. And he's also a 6'8" forward who was so versatile, was so smart, and on the defensive end gave you so much. So they're learning, and there's a little bit of learning curve. You have to be a little patient. How much more patience should there have been if they didn't show up to play at Duke and got blown out? Not sure. I mean, that would have been really, really devastating. But again, they didn't get blown out. They showed up. That should give you a little bit of hope as they kind of come into a really tough February, that they have a chance to at least compete and make it interesting.
Man, yeah, you know what? I'm not saying that you listen to hour one, but that was kind of my thing. Like, looking at the schedule ahead, it would be just awful had you not had the type of effort that you got last night in that 71-69 loss. Final thing on the basketball team, and we'll turn our attention to the transfer portal and also the gridiron. But Chase Hunter, I mean, look, I know that he's not exactly a name that Tiger fans probably thought at this point in the season they'd have to count on, because he's always kind of just been a role player off of the bench. But with the undersized guards, I mean, he to me, you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me a lot of David Collins when he's playing very well, because he can do a lot of things, both on the offensive end of the court, defensive end of the court, and rebounding on both ends, that I think really helps this Clemson Tiger team, because they shot the ball, I think, nearly 20 more. They had nearly 20 more opportunities to shoot last night than the Duke Blue Devils did. And to me, that was a testament to their job on the boards. Yeah,
and if you talk about that, they got down 60-53, and that dunk in there, Hunter Tyson had 3. That coast-to-coast dunk was Chase Hunter. And, I've been doing a little bit of research on him lately because he's obviously been playing really well. And I mean, if you go back, I mean, he is a guy who was a highly touted recruit. I mean, Michigan State was looking at him. A bunch of other really big schools were looking at him when he was coming out of Westlake High School in Atlanta. Just had so much tough luck at the beginning of his career with a broken, I think, a stress fracture in his foot, broken hand, all kinds of stuff. And like you said, I think fans weren't necessarily thinking about Chase Hunter because he hasn't given you a whole lot over the first couple of years. But he really does, I think, more than any other player on the team, change the complexion of the roster. I mean, if he's able to play at this level, which he's played at for about 3 games now, like you said, and I think Brownell has said, it was kind of a problem when they had Nick Honor and Alamir Dawes in the starting lineup together because those are 2 smaller guards, and other teams would just really take advantage of that on the defensive end. But if you got Chase Hunter, who's a couple inches taller than Alamir, or 3 or 4 inches taller than Nick Honor, maybe 5, I forget exactly, but he gives you just a completely different complexion on the defensive end and a lot of athleticism. And if he's shooting the ball at the level he is right now, I think he's 8 of 13 in his threes in the last 6 games. You don't lose that much in terms of shooting with Alamir and Nick. And so offensively, he gives you a whole lot too as an inside-out guy. Guy's really athletic. And, if he can, again, that coast-to-coast dunk, I think is emblematic of what he can give you, which is a high flyer when he gets going. It's just the confidence is something he's needed to build because those first 2 years were so tough for him. But yeah, I feel like he's a real X factor in terms of the kind of the ceiling of this team. I mean, if Chase Hunter plays at this level, I think the ceiling of this team is just astronomically higher than when he's more of a role player or kind of a forgotten man, like you were saying, like he was before.
100%. When he hit that little shot from the perimeter from the right wing where he had to create his own shot in the second half, sort of contested. When he knocked that one down, I thought, he's playing with more confidence than I've ever seen him play with. And it's really helped this team. Again, John Blau from the Post and Courier joins us here on Clemson Sports Talk on the show that shakes the Southland to talk a little bit about the Clemson Tiger basketball team. But I know all the Tiger fans want to keep their eyeballs on the Clemson football team. And one of the topics we were talking about earlier, The Athletic had an article or a mailbag about if you're a 5-star quarterback, where would you choose to go play? And obviously, with a name like Arch Manning out there in the 2023 class, Tiger fans are always wanting to know where the top quarterbacks want to go play. So I'll pose it to you, John. If you were, John Blau, 5-star quarterback out of Porter Gaud High School down in Charleston, where would you want to go play, just given sort of the resumes of the teams across the country?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I've never thought about it, so it kind of put me on the spot there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess the top name that comes to mind just subconsciously just pops right to the conscious mind is Alabama. I mean, just the run of success they've had. I mean, if Nick Saban wanted anything to do with me, which I know he definitely does not in my current state, that's who I am. But I would definitely, consider that. But yeah, no, I think getting to a more general point, if you're a 5-star quarterback, you're looking at situations because do you want to sit on the bench? Do you want to learn? Do you want to do what DJ Uyunglele did or Kate Klubnik maybe is about to do for Clemson? Or do you want to find a situation? Do you want to find an Ole Miss where they're, losing a Matt Corral and maybe I can step in and be the starting quarterback next year for Ole Miss and put up a bunch of points in the SEC? And if I'm a 5-star and I'm thinking, I'm headed to the NFL one day and they have an offensive scheme that I think matches my skill set, maybe I'll look at, say an Ole Miss or if LSU's got the right offensive coordinators. And that's the thing, I guess, again, more general point is that you are really looking for fit. You're looking for people you're comfortable with. You're looking for scheme. And that can really be a whole, host of teams depending on all those factors. So, yeah, I mean, if you're asking me just randomly off the top, who do I think be in a pretty good situation with? Alabama, I would say. Yeah. Georgia obviously just won the national title. But I do think that if you're a quarterback, just because there's only one of those positions in each of these teams, you try to find the place where you think you can play and you think you can put up a lot of yards and you can play well and win football games. So that can be very, very individual to whoever you are.
One of the other things that I mentioned is, and you brought up Georgia, they're an interesting bird from that standpoint because it was Stetson Bennett, the former walk-on, who ended up being the quarterback that leads them to the national title. So if you're a 5-star, maybe you're thinking, well, I could probably do that, but then you wonder, can I? But maybe even more so, Southern Cal is so interesting because Lincoln Riley's run of success as an offensive coordinator with Heisman Trophy winners and then as a head coach at Oklahoma. It was like, hey, no brainer, right? But you're going to a program at Southern Cal that's got years of success underneath its belt, just not recent years of success. And I just kind of wonder if I'm a 5-star quarterback sitting at home, is that enough out of the gates year one to say, yep, that's my guy, or do you have to wait and see what that system looks like?
Right. I mean, that's, again, interesting because if I was, like I was saying, evaluating the situation, you also look at the roster. I know one of the problems that USC's had over the last several years is the offensive line talent they've been bringing in has not been what it was back in the Reggie Bush, Lendell White, back in those years necessarily. So are you being protected the way you want to be if you're a 5-star quarterback? Now, if I'm a dual threat guy and I feel like I can run all over the place, nobody's catching me anyway. Maybe I don't care living in sunny LA and, all the NIL money and all that stuff that you can get out there. It sounds appealing. At the same time, if I'm a 5-star and, I want to get the most out of my experience and play the best, I'm going to look at who's got offensive linemen, who's got a running back that can support me, I can hand the ball to, who's actually going to do something. And that is the one question that I would have, I guess, in terms of the USC situation is where is that offensive line? And have they built up yet the talent around me where I would feel good about it? But again, different personalities. Maybe a guy feels like I'm the quarterback. If I'm Caleb Williams and I'm thinking about maybe going out there, do I feel like I can draw the talent? And you can do that more than ever now with the transfer portal. You can be the guy to start it and then bring in the talent around you.
Again, on social media at John_Blau each and every day, covering your Clemson Tigers for the Charleston Post and Courier. And we got just a couple of more minutes to hang out with him. One of the things that did happen over the past week since we've talked to you last, John, is the fact that Kylan Griffin out of Alabama committed to the Clemson Tigers, defensive back, a 3-star safety. You've been around the program for a year more now at this point, and I talked about the other day because people will look at that and they'll go, oh, man, a 3-star, really? But Clemson, to me, and after having covered them as long as I have, it's a culture fit, right? It's a guy that they think can step right in. I believe that Dabo Swinney would turn down a 5-star that he thinks would be a bad egg in the locker room for a 3-star that he thinks adds more value to his program. Am I right on that front?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because if you've got a 3-star who's willing to put in the work, is going to develop, might be willing to sit on the bench until they're a junior or senior, until they're actually ready to play. That's a benefit to a certain degree, especially when you already have players at a position. Let's look at safety. I mean, Andrew Makuba, RJ Mickens, you have guys who are ahead, who are ready to play right now. They don't have an urgent need, a guy who needs to come in right now and play necessarily. And then also, again, recruiting rankings are recruiting rankings. I mean, they are not, the end-all be-all of this thing. I mean, if you look back, some of the better players on Clemson's defense this past year, James Skalski, when he came out, what was he ranked? I think he was probably like a 3-star, right? Ranked in the thousands or
yep.
I don't know, the high 800s or 900s. I forget what it was exactly, but not a highly ranked guy, probably around where Kylan Griffin is, and he developed quite fine. So some of these moves can be better than you think they are at the time. And also one of the interesting things, again, that they didn't do all of their work in the early signing period is they've had some extra time to evaluate some of these guys. And several programs have been doing that for this February period in terms of the guys they're signing. And Griffin got an offer from Nebraska, from the USC, Southern Cal. Need to specify because of the South Carolina thing, And so yeah, I mean, other programs are looking at him too. He's a fast rising guy, and it's interesting to see how they're kind of closing this thing out and reevaluating some guys that maybe they missed in the first run through, or they weren't necessarily looking at. They were looking at Keon Saab before from IMG. But again, I think even hearing a story of way back, Brian Dawkins, I don't think was like the highest rated guy in the history of the world when he was coming out as a recruit. If there were rankings or how established they were, I forget. But he's a Hall of Fame safety who played at Clemson. So
right.
You really don't know until they get here how it's going to turn out. A lot of variables. And Kylan Griffin, I've watched his tape. Hard-hitting guy, seems to really move pretty well. Has some of those traits you look for in a safety, and I guess we'll see over the course of years how it turns out.
John, you brought up the old signing day, what used to be like the Mecca, right? I mean, this was like, I can remember when this week right here, as we were building towards February, was just like, oh my goodness, all the news. So do you like it? How do you like your early signing day and then your national signing day separated like we've had it over the past couple of seasons?
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting dynamic, because now we have the situation with Clemson where you're losing coaches, right before this or right after this.
Right.
It causes a lot of, just absolutely blows everything up in terms of you think you're going to get most of your work done in December. And now, Clemson's going to have a half dozen guys, maybe a little bit more than that, signed in February as well. So it kind of does, it's something that feels like it might need to be addressed. I don't know how, but because a lot of these guys want to get on campus now in January, which is something that's different than 20 years ago. They all want to be, they all want to graduate in the middle of the year and be able to be there for spring ball as freshmen. How do you manage that as opposed to, again, all this movement that's happening with coaches and then also with the transfer portal programs want to look at those portal guys as well, and which bumps a lot of these guys back to February. And so it's an interesting mix. I mean, it's obviously this is not a problem for me to fix, but it definitely does seem like something that, is becoming a little bit more complicated through the years. And it's going to be interesting to see if February, if there's kind of this double hit now, or in December you get 75% of it done, and there's another sizable chunk of 25% that you have to deal with in February. It's definitely an interesting dynamic with everything that's going on.
John, real quick, we've got a little under a minute left. Give us some insight into what we can expect to see from you over the next couple of days in the Post and Courier.
Yeah, I mean, obviously covering basketball, like I was saying, and looking into some features about some of those guys, PJ Hall, Chase Hunter, looking into that, doing some, advanced work on football, like, write about the projected starting lineups for offense, defense for Clemson football, way too early a look, even before we even get to spring, what it looks like. It's interesting, though, taking a look at all the guys that are coming back now that the transfer portal's mostly calmed down until the spring, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, I think baseball is going to have its first full team practice on Friday, so we'll have a write-up from that. So, doing a lot of different stuff, trying to keep busy, and hope you guys read it. So, appreciate it.
With a quick break, come back with more right after this. Great insight there from John Blau in the previous segment. And I've got to tell you, I think there's a number of things he got into that we could reset here in the rest of the program for sure. And maybe most notably, the thought process again around what Chase Hunter gives you in terms of this Clemson Tiger basketball team, simply by the additional size. And when I was talking about it earlier, I didn't even think about like qualifying or quantifying or whatever the right word is. I mean, the 5-inch difference in height. I mean, how important that is. And what happens a lot of times in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and I've said this really since Alamir Dawes and Nick Honor have been the starting guards for this team, is that you run into 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" players on the perimeter for so many teams that when you give up 6, 7, 8 inches, I mean, it's not impossible to win, but it becomes improbable to win. And I think by the elimination of one of those spots being an undersized guard, and look, there are going to be games where Chase Hunter is going to get a couple of fouls and have to sit. There are going to be games where David Collins is going to get a couple of fouls and have to sit. I mean, those moments are coming, but the reality is the more time you can spend on the floor at Clemson with like an average height of, I don't know what the numbers are. You do the math with 6'10" PJ Hall, 6'8" Hunter Tyson. You start to, you're probably pushing somewhere in the 6'6" average height range versus 6'2" probably without those guys or without Chase Hunter on the court. And that is one of the big storylines, I think, that's come out of this past week and a half with Chase Hunter coming into his own and gaining confidence. And, I think a lot of people forgot about him, and a lot of people, listen, I loved when he played. Quite frankly, he always sort of reminded me of a more guard-oriented David Collins. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, man, this kid's going to turn the ball over. He's going to be, somebody that's not going to share the basketball, not going to be willing to pass it and distribute. He never felt like that. Like, he always felt like the consummate team player. But to get him out there and get him more confidence and get him more shots, I think is a huge benefit for this Clemson team. And I think it will pay off in the long run. I think because of his play, as long as he stays healthy and he still continues to get his opportunities, I think you're going to see a better basketball club down the stretch. And isn't that really all you desire? I know some of you are never going to buy into Brad Brownell at this point. As I have said, some of you have been jumping off the bandwagon year after year after year, and eventually you stay off the bandwagon. I have called for him to be taken out of his role probably 3 times in my career on the air. I would not, and listen, and if you called me up tomorrow and said, look, Clemson's going to let Brad Brownell go at the end of the season, I am not going to cry myself to sleep at night and worry. I'm going to say, great, let's go get younger and energetic. Let's blow it up. Let's do something big. If you talk to a guy like it's not Terrell McIntyre, Terrence Oglesby, if you talk to people who have been around the program about Brad Brownell and you say, what kind of coach is he? They'll tell you, man, he's one of the best coaches in college basketball. And this will be people that have no reason to say it, and it's not like they're on a hot mic in front of you with Coach Brad Brownell sitting across the table. They have every reason to be honest about their assessment, and it's always positive. Mine is not. That's part of my job. Yours is not as a fan. That's part of your job. But it is hard, no matter who you are, to watch that team perform last night against Duke and come away from that going, yeah, you know what? I didn't like what I saw from that Clemson basketball team. And that's where I live. I live on the edge of, I just want to like what I see from that Clemson basketball team. I don't have to see victory upon victory upon victory. I love that. But I understand that that's not the norm for Clemson basketball. I understand that they don't recruit as well as the majority of teams that they play in their league. I get all that. I don't have unrealistic expectations. My expectations are not to be undefeated, are not about winning national titles, but it's absolutely about playing the way we've seen this team play since Chase Hunter has been inserted into that starting lineup. He's a spark. He's a catalyst. And if that continues, I think you're going to like what you see the rest of the year. You're not going to win out. You might not even make the postseason. But I don't even know that I need you to make the postseason to save your job if you're Brad Brownell. I just want to see a product on the court that you can look in the mirror after the game and go, you know what? I am proud of that effort. I am proud of that effort because I have seen less production in the past, and I don't want to see that again. I can live with that. John in Archdale, North Carolina, let me tell you something, buddy. The North Floor can live with that. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. Again, let us know, where would you go? I asked John Blau. He said probably Alabama. Where would you go if you were a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school? Where would you want to go? We'd love to hear from you on that front. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. By the way, we do have some news on the Deshaun Watson front to a degree. We'll give you an update on DW4. Hard to believe he did not play a snap this entire season. We'll give you an update on that next. The show that shakes the Southland on a Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully tomorrow, we're hoping to get caught up with former Clemson Tiger running back Darian Rencher here to find out more about his podcast. Recently interviewed Trevor Lawrence, recently interviewed Dabo Sweeney. So we'll hope to get Darian on the program here to talk about his new podcast and how that's going. 803-450-0086, text line and phone line. Be a part of the show anytime, any place, and anywhere. I mentioned Deshaun Watson before the break, and obviously you probably thought, oh boy, trade rumor about Deshaun Watson. Well, the truth is, I don't know that trade rumors about Deshaun Watson are ever going to go away given the allegations currently against him. And I don't want to say, I hope before the break when I said I couldn't believe he hadn't played a snap this season, hope that didn't come across the wrong way. Again, serious allegations against Deshaun. Nobody is denying that. I am certainly not denying that. I don't even know if I was an executive in the NFL that I would play him. I just mean it is hard for me to imagine that one of the best players in the league is not playing in the prime of his career. And when I'm watching that great game between Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes this weekend, that's what I kept thinking. I'm like, man, Deshaun Watson was supposed to be in the AFC, and Deshaun Watson, I'm not saying that Houston would have been worth 10 cents this year with Deshaun or without him. But, I mean, this was when you would have been expecting Deshaun to really continue to rise into being one of the faces of the NFL. And instead, because of the allegations against him, poof, nothing. But the owner of the New York Giants, John Mara, was asked about if the Giants would trade for Deshaun Watson. Here's what he said earlier today.
We're not trading for Deshaun Watson.
John,
why not? Why not, John? Sorry, I wanted to follow up. Sorry, John. Yeah, there's so many reasons why we wouldn't do that. I mean, cap-wise, we couldn't afford it, but more importantly, with the allegations that are out there right now, that's just not the right fit for us.
So let me tell you, when you hear that, if you're Deshaun Watson, that has got to be just disheartening for a couple of reasons. Like, look, and listen, if all the allegations are true about Deshaun Watson, he deserves whatever consequence comes from it. I don't deny that. I've never denied that. I've always said that. Is there a possibility that these accusations are false? Absolutely. I mean, that's why we live in a country where you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But if I hear that, if I'm Deshaun Watson, the reason that is so disheartening is because he talks about the fact that, yes, of course, the salary cap issues, but more importantly than that, the allegations. And to me, if you're Watson, that last part of that statement, when the issues that you have created for yourself are greater than the concerns of the salary cap for a team, that's when you know that you have probably put yourself in a terrible predicament as far as your future goes in the NFL. And quite frankly, I don't know or even really understand how Deshaun Watson could ever shake the blemish that is currently in front of him because of how significant these numerous female accusations are. And to me, it's just, it is, I cannot imagine what that burden would be like if you were innocent, if you were guilty. I mean, if that kind of thing is above your head, and again, if you're guilty, you ask for it. Like, you put yourself in that spot if you're guilty. And I still don't know how you get through it. And if you're innocent, even more so, I don't know how you get through it. 803-450-0086. I just know this. As he was getting older and maturing, he was becoming a better and better athlete in the NFL. Taking a look out on social media, can I just tell you this? I love all of you. But if you post your little Wordle score on social media, I might block you. I don't even know what this thing is. I don't even know how I begin playing it. And you know what? Quite frankly, watching you all post about it every day makes me not want to play it. If I had stock in Wordle, I'd sell it. I would say, no, I don't want to be a part of something like that. It's like buying into spam. You know what I have done lately? I'll go ahead and tell you, if you don't want me to follow you, it's easy. Please continue to just tweet political stuff. If that's all you add to my Twitter feed, you're gone. I want it filled with sports content, Clemson content. But if you start filling it up with politics, your boy Swanee's out. I'm out. I've several people have gotten the old unfollow from me lately. I don't care about your political views. I want to talk sports. Sports, I tell you, Jerry, sports. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line, be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere. Again, thank you to John Blau for joining us at the top of the hour. Almost said hour number one. Earlier this hour, thank you to John Blau from the Post and Courier. He's got some great work coming. And we certainly encourage you to subscribe to our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We're just $63.17. That's 17 cents a day. $63.17 gets you a year of coverage of your Clemson Tigers. That's right, Gamecock Nation. Say it with me. Say it loud. Say it proud. $63.17. We'll hit a quick break. We'll bounce back and put a big old bow on the show that shakes the Southland as you are locked in to Clemson Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Wednesday. Clemson Sports Talk again. Your Tigers just off of the heels of a loss to the Duke Blue Devils, 71-69, the final score. The Clemson shot just one free throw. Just one free throw in the ball game. Todd McShay of ESPN had an article up about how Pat Mahomes changed the way he scouts quarterbacks, saying that the pre-draft scouting report weighed poor mechanics against incredible results. And again, I go back to what I said here the other day, and you guys can say, Swanee, you're a bonehead. This kid's the best quarterback in the history of the sport. Whatever you want to believe. I don't think on a team with less skilled players, Pat Mahomes gets away with this stuff. I've never bought into it. Maybe get off my lawn, kids. Maybe that's me. But I really don't buy into what I would kind of deem shenanigans that he pulls out, which are neat, fun, and incredible to watch. It's certainly difficult to defend, but I think you have to have incredibly skilled playmakers around you, like Tyreek Hill, that can just make plays. And furthermore, I am not surprised that as you kind of watch that game unfold, on the road, quite frankly, I thought Josh Allen outplayed him. I mean, to me, if the Buffalo Bills win that game, they won the game because of Josh Allen. The Kansas City Chiefs, I thought, won that game because of the skill position players. Tyreek Hill, Pat Kelsey, and that's the difference. And I'm not saying that I think that this kid's a bad quarterback, but I don't believe they win at this level. As a matter of fact, I think that he would tend to lose more games than most if he was surrounded by the cast of characters that, say, Trevor Lawrence is surrounded by. I think Patrick Mahomes probably has a worse season at Jacksonville than Trevor Lawrence did, simply because of the fact that I think you are prone to more gaffes and mistakes with a lesser offensive line in front of you and lesser skill position players when you play the way that Pat Mahomes does. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. A no-look pass, yeah, that's awesome. But to me, it doesn't change. It doesn't change how I feel about him. And even one title and 4 trips to the AFC Championship game doesn't change the belief that I have that, doing all of that, it will help you win some games. It might even help you surprise some teams along the way, even in the playoffs. But I don't believe that playing that loosey-goosey style, or whatever you want to call it, sort of a free-flowing nature, which I love on the basketball court, always have. Magic Johnson, Showtime Lakers, they were my first love. But it takes a lot for me to think that it's going to continue to be great at Kansas City. I know they're going to have salary cap issues. I think William Qualkenbush brought that up the other day. But as we, or maybe it might have been Mike Uva, but as we proceed to continue to watch this young man play, at some point, I think his flash is going to end up costing them. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. And again, we appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of this team. Some big news out of college basketball today. Chris Mack, head coach of the Louisville Cardinals, who I think many people felt like was a really solid hire. He came from Xavier. From Xavier, he spent, 9 years there and then got to Louisville in 2018. But nonetheless, he is out at Louisville after an 11-9 and 5-5 start in 2021 to kick off this year. There were also some allegations against him. You may recall that there was a situation with his former assistant, Dino Gaudio, which resulted in Gaudio attempting to extort Mack in a recording. Gaudio told Mack he would expose violations if he wasn't paid the remainder of his salary. I believe Gaudio, and I'm going to quickly throw this in my Google machine because it just popped into my head. I believe Gaudio ended up either in prison or serving some prison time. Before that, he was sentenced to federal. Let's see, he's been sentenced to 1 year probation and $10,000 fine for that situation, I believe, is the number. I'm not going to pull that full article up here, but that's what I'm seeing on that front. Gaudio, of course, was the head coach at Wake Forest, and I believe was the head coach at Wake Forest when Chris Mack was a part of the Demon Deacons program as an assistant coach. So they sort of, I think, swapped spots. Nonetheless, Mack, 52 years old, said, quote, "This team has been impossible for us to figure out," when he's just kind of talking about the program. And again, they were defeated by Virginia on Monday, their 5th loss in 6 games. He was suspended without pay for the first 6 games of the season, and Louisville has been 6-8 since then. So Chris Mack, the sides have agreed, the situation has become too toxic, and he's out there in the Derby City. We're out here in the Midlands. We got to go. Until tomorrow, as always, y'all take care now, and go Tigers.